Hello viewers, I am Dr. K.S. Kumar, Associate Professor of Chemistry, Sri Siddhartha First Grade College. Today I am going to interact with you about the bioinorganic chemistry. You know the role of many metals in biological system. Very vital phenomena of the biological system like photosynthesis and the metabolism and various other activities like bone formation, nervous activity, and various enzymatic processes are controlled by these inorganic elements. Not only the metals, even the non-metals also plays an important role in altering the biological system. I mean both the plant system as well as the animal system. Let us concentrate. So what is bioinorganic chemistry? What is the role of the bulk metals like sodium, potassium, and magnesium? So, in addition to the role of other metals, let us give much importance to the sodium, potassium, and the magnesium. And also, let us see what is that sodium potassium pump, how it is useful to for the transportation. And of course, the next thing is the how this calcium is useful in the blood clotting phenomena, blood clotting process, and how this calcium is involved in the bone formation and structures of the proteins. Okay, so these are the main things we are going to discuss in this video. Let us see the first one.
Okay, for any information, for any clarification, you can contact me with this number 9448447137, or you can email to this one kumarkablikes@gmail.com. Let us see what is this bioinorganic chemistry. Bioinorganic chemistry deals with the role of metals and non-metals in biological system. And of course, what is the role of the metals and non-metals in the biological system? The inorganic elements other than the carbon, especially the metals, plays a vital role in functioning of the biosystem. Many biological processes such as the photosynthesis, respiration, metal ion transport, enzymatic actions, etc., fall into the realm of bioinorganic chemistry. It is highly advanced interdisciplinary science. Remember, it is the study of role of metals and non-metals in the biological system. The two major components of bioinorganic chemistry are the study of naturally occurring inorganic elements in biosystems. And secondly, introduction of these elements as probes or drugs into the biological system and studying inorganic models that mimic the behavior of various metalloproteins. It also investigates the nutritional aspects, toxicity, therapeutic action, transport, and storage of metals and non-metals in plants and the animals. Of course, so the bioinorganic chemistry mainly concentrates on the role of metals in biological system. Even the non-metals plays an important role in finding out the drugs or the mechanism of the drugs in the biological system. Okay, let us see some of the information related to the metals or the elements in the biological system. That is what I want to suggest is that is the distribution of elements in the earth crust and in the human body. Remember, the organisms uptake elements in different forms from the earth crust only and the surrounding atmosphere. However, it is evident from the following table that there is a rather a weak correlation between the distribution of various elements in the earth crust and that in the biological system. That means the elements present in the earth crust are not proportional in the biological system. Hence, certain efficient and optimized systems and mechanisms are evolved for the uptake, utilization, and storage of essential elements, all of which fall into the scope of the biochemistry, bioinorganic chemistry. So to conclude with this slide, that is, the elements proportion in the earth crust is different from the elements present in the biological system. There is a mechanism to absorb these elements, and of course that is going to determine the elements in the living system. And this is the table which gives the information regarding the elements present in the earth crust. The oxygen is 47% in the earth crust, but it is present in the 63% in the biological system. It plays an important role. The silicon is 28% in the earth crust, but it is in, that is 25.5% in the human body. Aluminum is 7.9% in the earth crust. It is 9. The aluminum percentage in the biological system is negligible, and these are the percentages of the metals in the earth crust, but those percentages are not in this list. Okay, so here you can say the metal like nitrogen, metal like potassium, sulfur, they all differ in their percentage in the biological system. Then let us see inorganic elements and their biological functions. See, the inorganic elements, especially the metals, plays an important role in the biological system. Based on the relative concentrations in the biological system, the metals are divided into two categories, that is the bulk metals and the trace metals. The bulk metals are sodium, potassium, magnesium, and calcium, and all other metals, that is trace metals, zinc, iron, cobalt, nickel, copper, that is molybdenum, vanadium, etc. And of course, they are present in very low concentration and they are useful as the biocatalyst. Okay, so that is we have only the four metals as the bulk metals. They are present in the large excess. Okay, so because based on the abundance, we have classified the bulk metals and the trace metals. These metals, even though they are present in the very small amount, of course, they play a very important role in the biocatalysis. Then find the summary of biological metals and non-metals in the following tables. We have two tables next, and they are going to give the summary of the metals and non-metals in the biological system. The next one you can see the bulk metals. The bulk metals are sodium, potassium, magnesium, and calcium. What exactly the biological role of these metals? Sodium, potassium got important roles as electrolytes in the biological system, and they maintain the concentration gradient in living cells, that is osmotic balance. And of course, these metals are helps in the active and passive transport of the things in the biological system, and of course they are the charge carriers. So among the bulk metals, these sodium and potassium plays an almost identical role in the biological system. Then is the magnesium. So magnesium metal is very important in the for the living system, and of course it is present in the chlorophyll and helps in photosynthesis. In energy production, of course, magnesium plays an important role in the glycolysis steps. That is the conversion of the ADP to ATP, or the activation of the ATP in the glycolysis to generate the energy and all those things. Then it involves as an activator for many enzymes, and of course it involves the information carrier also. And of course it is present in endo and exoskeletons. Magnesium is very important in the biological system. It plays these roles in the biological system. The next important thing is the calcium one. So calcium is very familiar, and it's a charge carrier. In muscles and nervous functions, it is a cell signaling. It involves in the cell signaling process. And of course, it acts as a second messenger and sentinel at the synapse. Okay, then present in teeth as calcium phosphate, that is hydroxy apatite. Okay, then calcium carbonate is present in endo and exoskeletons, and of course it is also involved in the activation of the enzymes, that is as an activator. And another important thing is it is involved in the blood clotting processes. And these are the bulk metals which and their biological functions. Let us see some of the uh, trace elements and their biological role. And many metals, as we know, plays an important role in the biological system. Among them, zinc, copper, iron, cobalt, manganese, nickel, molybdenum, vanadium are mentioned here. So zinc is involved in hydrolytic enzymes, that is carboxypeptidase. Importantly, copper, Cu plus and Cu2 plus is an electron transfer system. Of course, transport and storage of the dioxygen. Even this ferrous iron is an electron transport in the electron transport chain, and of course it is very important in the transport of oxygen, and that is the storage of the dioxygen. Okay. And similarly, we have the other metals, and they are the trace metals, and they play an important role in the biological system. Okay. Let us see. So, the important metals I choose in this discussion is the sodium. So, what exactly the role of this sodium? So, to tell about the function of the sodium, I give a brief introduction about the sodium ion. The main source of sodium is sodium salt, and of course, which is used as a cooking salt. Okay, and the content of sodium is high in bread, cheese, clams, carrots, cauliflower, eggs, milk, nuts, spinach. And of course, the sodium requirement for the biological system is mainly through the salt, that is sodium chloride, which is used as a cooking salt. Okay. What is the daily requirement of the sodium? That is, each person requires 5 to 10 gram of sodium chloride, you see, if he is an adult. Okay, the major, it is present in the blood. Plasma of vertebrates and white potassium plus is a major cation of the cytoplasm which is present in the cells. Okay, so the daily requirement is of the sodium is 5 to 10 gram, and it is very essential for the biological function. Let us see what is this is very important from examination point of view, and it maintains the body fluid, water balance, and of course it plays an important role to absorption of the glucose, amino acids, and the galactose. And of course it is associated with the chloride and bicarbonate regulator of acid-base balance in the biological system. Sodium, it is very familiar metal. It plays an important role in the fluid balance of the system, and of course it is also involved in the other processes, that is the absorption of the glucose, amino acids, and the galactose into the cell. Okay. Then what is the deficiency of the sodium causes? Remember, due to high environmental temperature, extreme sweating may cause loss of sodium. So under high environmental condition, under extreme temperature, so due to the sweating, so we may lose the sodium. So this leads to the muscular cramps of the abdomen, headache, etc. So many times we observe that. So the players, cricket players or football players, exhaust their energy and they lose the water through the sweating. Along with that, sodium also is lost. And if the sodium is lost to the minimum extent, the maximum extent, and that leads to the muscular cramps. And of course, the high intake of the sodium causes the blood pressure. Okay, the person who is having high blood pressure should be careful. He should take the little amount of the sodium. You should avoid eating the sodium. Okay. Next, we shall go to the potassium. So potassium sources are mentioned here, and it is high content present in the chicken, beef, liver, bananas, juice of orange and pineapple, and potatoes, jams. Okay, so intake is about 4 gram daily by an healthy person. What is the exact role of this potassium. Its principal cation of intracellular fluids, that is cytoplasm of cell, increase the activity of the muscles, especially cardiac muscles. Potassium is very important in transportation of things inside the cell and outside the cell. And it also helps in maintaining the acid-base balance and osmotic pressure of the body. Similar to the sodium, it is responsible for the acid-base balance as well as the osmotic pressure. And it increase activity of glycolytic enzyme, pyruvate kinase enzyme. And of course, it stopped blood coagulation. So of course, it helps to stop the coagulation of the blood. And it regulates heartbeat also. Play an important role synthesis of the ribosomes. So potassium presence in the biological system or in the human body is very, very important because it involves in the so many activities. So similar to the sodium, potassium is also important. You can see the deficiency of the potassium leads to what? Depression and low activeness of cardiac and nervous system, and causes again the muscular weakness, cramping of muscles. These are the important things related to the potassium. So potassium is important in this way. Okay. Next we shall see the magnesium. The magnesium is also another important metal in the biological system. So let us see what are the sources of this magnesium. So magnesium is present in cocoa, various nuts, soybean and seafoods. It is also present in beans, peas in small quantity. Okay. What is the requirement, daily requirement? We need at least 300 milligram daily for adult women and 350 for the adult men. That is the requirement. And the important thing is the function. The body contains about 21 milligram of magnesium, 70% combined with calcium and phosphorus is complex salt in complex salts of various bones. And magnesium 2 plus ion is one of the essential cation of soft tissues. And of course, in muscles and other tissues, intracellular Mg2 plus ions probably the functions as activator of phosphate group transfer enzyme. So you have studied that the first reaction of the glycolysis and third reaction of the glycolysis, where the ATP is involved, ATP gets converted into ADP. This magnesium metal acts as an activator in that process. Okay, in those two important reactions. So that is the magnesium initiates and activates the ATP. So in the process. Okay. Then what the disease or what may be the problem with the deficiency of the magnesium? In case of course, in case of men, lead to neuromuscular dysfunctioning. Okay, hyperexcitability. That's a medical term we use. So the important one regarding these elements is the functioning of these elements. Even with other metals also, what is the function of the sodium, what is the function of the potassium, and what is the function of the magnesium. Next we shall see what is this sodium potassium pump. So you can see sodium potassium pump, exchange pump is an example of the active transport mechanism. Active transport process can move the substance against the concentration gradient and required energy in the form of the breakdown of the ATP. During this sodium potassium pump, ATP is going to break down and supply the energy for the movement of the ions. The sodium potassium exchange pump moves sodium ion out of the cell and potassium ion into the cell. The main function of the sodium potassium pump is to move sodium ions from the inside the cell and potassium ion into the cell. And of course, the carrier protein embedded in cell membrane. And 3 sodium ion and ATP molecule can bind to the carrier protein inside the cell membrane, ATP broken into ADP and phosphate. Simultaneously, the carrier protein change its shape and sodium ion transport across the membrane and release the sodium ion outside the cell membrane. Of course, in the new conformation of conformation, the carrier protein binds the potassium ion. With a new conformation, it is able to bind with the potassium ion which is present outside the cell membrane. The two potassium ions move carrier protein from outside the cell membrane, and phosphate attached carrier protein is released. So here it is very important. So from inside the cell, three sodium ions are going to be attached with the ATP molecule, with the help of the ATP molecule binds to the protein, whereas incoming protein is able to bring only the two sodium ions inside the cell. And of course, the carrier protein changes shape again and letting into original conformation and delivering the potassium ion inside the cell membrane. Okay, this process is repeated again and again. So this is what is sodium potassium pump. Remember, to conclude this one, to tell about in a precise way, sodium ions, three sodium ions comes from inside the cell to the outside the cell. Two potassium ions get into the cell. For this, the cell membrane, the protein associated in the cell membrane is very important. And cell membrane changes its shape and allow or pump the sodium ion from inside the cell. The energy to change its shape is obtained by the hydrolysis of the ATP, where ATP is broken into the ADP, and of course that energy is utilized to pump out the sodium ions from inside the cell. Once the energy is utilized, it changes its shape. That changed shape is able to absorb the potassium ions from the outside and get into the cell. And of course, after this, the protein regains its shape as it is, and this process is repeated. And this mechanism I can show with a video. Here you can see these are the, you can see here just a minute. These are the yellow embedded things are the ATP, and this being red colored balls represents the sodium ions, and of course potassium ions comes into the picture later, and you can see the movement of these ions, they start moving. So here you can see the movement of the sodium ions, and here it is the ATP, and this ATP molecule so breaks, that ATP is going to break and to give the ADP, and it releases the energy, and that you can see that movement of the ATP molecule when it interacts with the sodium metal, it breaks up and the protein changes its shape, and carrier protein changes its shape and pump out these sodium ions. You can observe here the sodium ions are moving in red color, and from inside the cell it is converted, it is thrown out of the cell. Still that protein is in the another conformation, so that takes in the two metal ions, two balls inside, and that is moved into the cell. So you can observe here those ions. At the same time, the phosphate releases from the protein, and these sodium ion, potassium ions moves into the cell. And this you can observe now the protein regains its shape. So after this functioning, the protein regains its shape, and this process is repeated again and again. Okay, so this video almost gives the mechanism of the potassium sodium pump, the sodium potassium pump. Okay. Let us see the role of magnesium ion in energy production. You can observe here magnesium is a cofactor in more than 300 enzyme systems. And it, of course, it regulates diverse biochemical reactions in the biological system, including protein synthesis, muscle and nervous function, blood glucose level control, and blood pressure regulation. It plays a variety of roles in the biological system. Particularly, this magnesium is required for energy production in two stages, that is in the oxidative phosphorylation as well as the glycolysis. You remember the oxidative phosphorylation is the electron transport chain where the magnesium plays an important role in the production of the ATP molecules. So in the glycolysis, you remember that particular reaction where the ATP is activated during the conversion of the glucose to glucose 6-phosphate and glucose fructose 6-phosphate to fructose 1,6-diphosphate. The magnesium plays an important role in these two reactions in glycolysis. So that's the important functions of the function of the magnesium. Next, how this magnesium is having the role in the chlorophyll. Remember, the chlorophyll molecule includes a Me group in its central structure with a magnesium ion electrically bound in its center. So chlorophyll is having an Me group in the center with a magnesium ion electrically bound in its center. Ironically, red blood cells also contain a Me group, that is hemoglobin, but the central element is iron. In the chlorophyll, the central element is magnesium. So that's why in the case of the blood, that is central element is the iron, therefore it is red in color. It is actually the iron in hemoglobin that makes the blood red, while magnesium makes the chlorophyll green. Magnesium is so important to photosynthesis that if there is a magnesium deficiency, plants will remove magnesium ions from the chlorophyll in the lower leaves and translocate it to the upper leaves where the plant needs it the most. That is why magnesium deficiency shows up as intervenial chlorosis in the lower leaves first. The veins stay green, but the leaf tissues turn yellow from the lack of the magnesium. So that is the magnesium metal is very, very important in the chlorophyll. That is particularly during the chlorophyll and during the photosynthesis process. Then let us see what is the role of calcium in blood clotting. So you can identify these 4 steps in this blood clotting process and its role, the role of calcium in blood clotting process. Clotting factors contain a unique modified glutamate residues, that is GLA, called carboxyglutamate. And synthesis of these glutamate residues results from post-translational modifications of the newly synthesized factors in the liver endoplasmic reticulum by the vitamin K. The amino acid is a natural high affinity binder of calcium ions, hence the designation of calcium as a cofactor in the blood clotting cascade. Of course, calcium GLA factors complex allow specific interaction with acidic membrane lipids that ultimately lead to the correct tertiary and quaternary protein structure recognized by other proteins in the pathway. So this is the role of the calcium in blood clotting. That means, so these blood clotting proteins are there in the bloodstream. So bloodstream, whenever there is a requirement, this calcium comes into the picture and it binds with this protein and the blood clotting results with the help of the vitamin K. So that is the role of the calcium in blood clotting. Next, the role of calcium in stabilization of protein structure and structural role in bones. So these bones are mostly made up of protein collagen, which forms a soft framework. The mineral calcium phosphate harden this framework, giving its strength. More than 99% of our body's calcium is held in our bones and teeth. Okay, the bones have an internal structure similar to a honeycomb, which makes them rigid yet relatively light. Okay. In addition to calcium, in the presence of an adequate supply of vitamin D, dietary proteins represent key nutrients for bone health and thereby function in the prevention of the osteoporosis. Okay. Several studies, of course, point to a positive effect of high protein intake on bone mineral density or content. So that's about the role of calcium in stabilization of the protein and structural role in the bones. With this, I thank you very much. Before I conclude, I am going to give you some of the questions that are possible in this chapter. As an introduction, I told you so the importance of the bioinorganic chemistry. Next thing is the important thing is what is the role of the sodium in biological system. List out the biological functions of the potassium and list out the biological functions of the magnesium and what is the mechanism of sodium potassium pump or sodium potassium pump. That's another important thing. What is the role of magnesium in chlorophyll in energy production? What is the role of the calcium in blood clotting and in the protein structure or bone structure? Okay, these are the possible questions, and it's a I concentrate on a specific examination, and these are the about 8 marks question you can expect in this chapter. So with this I conclude, and if you have any queries, you just mail me. Mail address is given in the first slide, and if you want, you can telephone me, that is 944-844-7137. If you like this video, subscribe to this channel and give likes and comment about it. Thank you very much again.